the live button.
Good afternoon. The Senate Finance Committee is now in session. And our first bill to hear this afternoon is Senate Bill 169. And was sponsored by Chair of Finance Committee, and one person testifying in person will be Patrick Lally, the Governor's Coordinating Office. Mr. Lally. This is him. Oh, butterfly. You got to unmute yourself. You're muted. Okay.
Thanks, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm testifying in support of SB 169, the administration's departmental bill that would make technical changes to the state coordinator for autism strategy and the advisory stakeholder group on autism-related needs. Again, my name is Patrick Lally. I'm the Senior Executive Director of the Governor's Coordinating Offices, housing the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives that is in charge of the coordinator and the advisory group. You also have in your file a letter of support from Secretary Beatty of the Department of Disabilities. And before I begin, if you would be so kind, I'd like to commend Delegate Michelle Guyton in particular for her tireless work on behalf of persons with autism and their families. Her efforts to create the coordinator and the advisory group are noteworthy and laudable. And I might add, this is the very first state office of this kind in the nation. I'd also like you to know that last November, we hired the coordinator and established the advisory group. The panel's first meeting will take place on February 8th. So I just wanted to give you that update. SB 169 would make technical changes to the underlying statute, most of which would correct references to the agency of jurisdiction. Originally, the Department of Disabilities was to lead this effort, but ultimately, the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives became the implementing agency. So unnecessary references to the department should be replaced with GOCI. Two other proposed changes are, first, adding a representative from the Maryland Senate and 2 representatives from the House of Delegates to the advisory group. And second, changing the requirement that the coordinator chair the advisory group by having the governor appoint a chair from among that panel. First, the addition of General Assembly representation would enhance the panel considerably and greatly assist in furthering its goals. Second, the administration would like to see the advisory group structure comport with the standard organizational structure established by a dozen commissions already under the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives. Each of these operates with a director, the equivalent of the autism coordinator, who administers commission activities but is not a member of the panel. The advisory group here being analogous to a commission. This allows for good governance and balance in everything from processing reimbursements to overall fiscal supervision. It also enables these panels to secure the highest quality leadership with a powerful voice independent from, but cooperating with the director. And lastly, it reflects best practices recommended by the State Transparency and Accountability Reform Commission report from last December on agency operations and structures. In my written testimony, I specifically referenced the best practices on page 16 of the report applicable to this advisory group. With this overview, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I conclude my testimony and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Well, seeing none, you must have done a good job.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, that ends the testimony, the oral testimony on that bill. All right, we're going next to Senate Bill 200. And who is this one?
It's a departmental.
Okay, again, this is a bill for the department and was sponsored by the chair of the Finance Committee. And we will be hearing from Anna Gribble from the Maryland Department of Health and from Heather Scheck from the Maryland Department of Health. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly and the committee members. Thank you very much for having me here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 200. My name is Anna Gribble, and I am the Provider Engagement and Policy Manager at the Office of the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, also known as.
Now we lost you. You're muted again. Okay.
Can you hear me? All right,
Yeah.
Let me keep going. Okay, so I'm the Provider Engagement and Policy Manager in the Office of the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, also known as the PDMP in the Maryland Department of Health. And as you mentioned, I'm joined by my colleague, Heather Scheck, and the Director of Governmental Affairs, who will be available for questions as well. The Senate Bill 200 fills a public health surveillance gap by requiring dispensers to report naloxone dispenses to the PDMP. The department currently monitors the distribution of naloxone from overdose response programs and Medicaid claims data. This leaves a surveillance gap of patients receiving naloxone from pharmacies, which is covered by private insurance or paid for in cash. By requiring naloxone dispenses to be reported to the PDMP, the department will have an improved surveillance data to support targeted and more informed naloxone distribution interventions. Dispensers, including pharmacies and prescribers who are authorized to dispense controlled substances, utilize an electronic reporting mechanism established by the program to currently report controlled substances dispensed. With the implementation of Senate Bill 200, the program will modify the reporting system to allow for the reporting of non-controlled substance dispenses. Currently, if non-controlled substance dispenses are inadvertently reported to the PDMP, we have a system to filter them out of the PDMP altogether. With Senate Bill 200, the program will identify the naloxone dispenses reported, sort them from the rest of the controlled substance data, and report them separately. The requirement to report naloxone dispenses in Senate Bill 200 is limited to dispensers who already are required to report controlled substance dispenses to the PDMP. As specified in Health General Article 26-2A03, dispensers who dispense controlled substances in or into Maryland are required to report to the program every 24 hours. Limiting the reporting requirement to dispensers of controlled substance dispenses in Senate Bill 200 will prevent additional reporting requirements on new dispensers. The redisclosure of naloxone data reported to the PDMP will be limited to aggregate reports for public health surveillance or research purposes only. As naloxone can be dispensed to individuals who may witness an opioid-related overdose, not just those who may experience an overdose, limiting the redisclosure of naloxone dispenses reported to the PDMP may prevent unintended consequences and potential stigma faced by patients. During the drafting of regulations, language can be included to provide additional clarity on how data will be redisclosed, aligning with statute language proposed in Senate Bill 200 to reinforce that data will not be shared in an identifiable format to any stakeholders, including prescribers or law enforcement. The program anticipates the cost to modify the electronic reporting system and create a new aggregate de-identified reporting system of naloxone data will be $192,000 over 2 years. The Office of Provider Engagement and Regulation, which houses the PDMP, has received grant funding from the Department of Justice to support expanded PDMP functionality. This office anticipates that costs associated with the collecting of naloxone dispenses can be covered by these funds. In closing, NDH fully supports Senate Bill 200 and respectfully requests the committee return a favorable report. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions along with Heather.
Thank you. Are there any questions of this witness? All right, if not, then we're going to hear from her colleague, Heather Scheck, the Maryland Department of Health.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I am just going to say ditto. I want to make clear what my colleague Anna said, that I think something that's really important to note is this data that's collected will be de-identified. It will be in the aggregate. So prescribers, providers, no one will be able to see this data on an individual level to provide the person receiving the naloxone that protection and the privacy. So I just wanted to hammer that point home. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, I guess you guys did a very good job. No questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, yes, thank you very much. I just want to ask one question. What are you all going to do with the data? What happens with the data?
That's a good question. I can help with this. So the data will help us identify areas in the state where additional naloxone distribution efforts are needed by identifying gaps. Right now, we can identify them using overdose response program data and Medicaid claims data, but we don't have the full picture of what's happening with naloxone distribution without this additional data collection system. So with that, we'll be able to target naloxone distribution efforts.
And this is used for persons who are trying to beat the use of opiate. That's what it's
correct. It will person opioid-related overdose. Yes.
Right, but other than targeting where the areas where this is used, there's nothing else that happens, right?
That's the intended consequence. The goal with this bill is to be able to target naloxone. Correct. That's
okay, thank you. That's what I'm interested in. Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Klossmeyer.
I just recently received a question from one of my Senate colleagues. She went to get naloxone. She wanted to have it just in case. I don't know if she has a friend or whatever. But anyway, she's paid $150. Did you get that email? I think it went over to your department. I don't know. Where are you?
Anna, I'm happy to take this.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Senator.
I'm just wondering if someone, the bottom line is, if somebody would like to have that on hand, can they just go to the health departments and get that for free?
Yes, the local health departments do carry supplies of naloxone that can be distributed for free.
Okay, anywhere else they can get it?
So, and Anna may know this better. Pharmacies do have it. However, because they're independent, I don't believe the state can make sure that they don't charge a fee for it. Some private insurance companies do have a copay for it, so it may not be free.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, if a person goes to his or her local health department for the naloxone, do they have to fill out a questionnaire or indicate why they need it?
Anna, do you know the answer to that?
I don't know. It may vary from health department. I also know that the department works in credentials overdose response programs, which may not be a health department. It may be a community organization to also distribute naloxone. And I don't know the standard information they collect from everyone who comes in and collects naloxone.
It would be helpful if you guys could just get back to us and just send me a note or an email or whatnot and let us know before we vote on this good bill. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We're going next to Senate Bill 66, Senator Patterson, and I think I see Senator Patterson in the room. Labor and employment, hiring, education requirements. Give me a chance, Job Opportunities Act of 2022. Senator, you want to start us off and explain your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair Kelly and Vice Chair Quellman and members of the Finance Committee. I certainly want to thank each of you for this opportunity to briefly speak to Senate Bill 66 that includes matters that deals with inclusion, equity, and just really putting together legislation whereby we do not leave anybody behind, but make an effort to provide an opportunity for all those that are physically able and would like to seek employment. Senate Bill 666 is basically in the same posture as Senate Bill 738 was before your committee in 2019. And it basically prohibits employers from rejecting an applicant during the initial interview process on solely the lack of not having a high school or other professional type degree, BS degree, master degree, et cetera. But I want to make it clear that we are not bypassing the fact to know that there are certain occupations that we must have initial credentials for, such as doctors and electricians and all those that requires some type of certification would not be affected by this bill. And lastly, Madam Chair, we meaning the General Assembly over the last several months and even last year, we put a lot of emphasis talking about CTE program, career technical training. And even in the blueprint for Maryland, we allocated a lot of monies for career technical training. But when you look around, I don't see much going to some of the needed areas. For instance, unfortunately, in my county alone, we have roughly 25% of our students that do not go on to college after finishing high school. And of course, we're talking about 25% of roughly 30,000 students annually that will not have an advanced degree or a GED or a high school degree. And of course, that puts a strain on our tax base, because if you're not employed and living in the county, those monies are going some other place. So we want to make sure that we don't develop barriers that will prohibit an opportunity for those who might, for whatever reason, not have those so mentioned degrees. So we believe that this will be good for the county, good for the state. And in essence, I honestly believe it's a win-win for all. So I am asking you to seriously consider this bill. Maybe all the counties are not in the predicament that we are, but we hear from developers all the time. We talk, why can't you put more developments down in the lower part of the county? And the thing they already ask us, well, we probably could, but we do okay late evening and night, but you don't have anybody that's working in the county, because a large percentage of the residents of Prince George's County, they work DC and Virginia and those places. So it makes us difficult. So we believe that looking at these barriers and also creating some skill level jobs under the CTE program will help us to overcome this disparity in our county and perhaps throughout the state. So we have several expert witnesses, speakers who's going to speak on behalf of the bill, and also entertain questions that you may have. I think we got Crystal Dews and
We've got the list.
you got the list?
Yes,
Okay.
we have the list.
Okay,
And
well,
I want to remind all of the witnesses that you have maximum of 2 minutes each. We have tons of people to listen to this afternoon on these very important bills. All right, we're going to start with Christopher Dews.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Christopher Dews, and I am the Senior Policy Advocate of the Job Opportunities Task Force, where our mission is to help lower wage workers advance to higher wage jobs. Of course, we support Senate Bill 66 with a slight amendment to give experienced job seekers the chance to interview for the positions they apply for, regardless of their degree or educational status. 62% of Maryland's workforce do not possess a college degree, despite many more employers demanding them. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 74% of the new jobs created from 2007 to 2016 had a college degree requirement, leaving most Marylanders excluded from these positions. Opportunity at Work, which is also on this panel, examined this issue and discovered that over 70% of Black, rural, and Latinx workers are screened out of the job application process by tools like Indeed and ZipRecruiter because they are without a degree. Those tools were designed to make hiring more efficient, but they have unfortunately screened out many qualified Marylanders. Senate Bill 66 wishes to erase that barrier for the millions of applicants who may have the experience, but not necessarily the education. It also ensures that experienced workers are not disqualified from applying for a promotion on the basis of their degree status. For us, if they have shown that they can do the work, JOTF believes that they should be given the chance to interview. To be clear, this bill does not affect positions requiring educational status for accreditation, and it also does not affect positions that require a license and a degree, like lawyers and doctors, etc. It also does not force an employer to hire someone that they do not feel is qualified. It's their company. They have the right to work with who they deem is best fit. The bill merely expands the pool of qualified applicants by giving more potentially experienced candidates the chance to interview. And with that, we urge a favorable report with amendments. Our slight amendment is simply that we would like to tailor this legislation to focus on the four-year degree requirement, as that seems to be the most effective next step. But we are open to that conversation, and we really thank Senator Patterson for sponsoring this bill again. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, we're going to move then to Cody Drinkwater. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, committee members. My name is Cody Drinkwater. I'm here today representing People on the Go of Maryland. We are here in support of SB 66. The bill is good for people with disabilities because many of us have been on our certificate track, either rightly or wrongly. This means that you do not receive a high school diploma, but rather a certificate of completion. And this counts against you when you're looking to obtain employment regardless of your life experience or other qualifications for the job. And that's all I wanted to say. We're in support for it, and thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this speaker? All right, we're going next to Patrick Hogan, unfavorable. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm in the wrong location. Papaya Debroy. That's who we need to hear from next. Okay.
Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's an honor to be here. My name is Papia DeBroy, and I lead the research work at the nonprofit social enterprise Opportunity at Work. I'm also a Maryland resident calling in today from the lovely Silver Spring. Our research at Opportunity at Work actually focuses on understanding the potential of workers in the United States who don't have a four-year college degree, but who have instead gained valuable skills through their work experience through alternative routes. We call these workers who are skilled through alternative routes STARS. Our academic work about this population has been published in academic journals as well as in places like the New York Times. And I'm here today to actually share a couple of insights with you as you give consideration to this bill. First, STARS, the population without a four-year college degree, has seen an increasing opportunity gap in our US labor market. When a STAR enters the labor force at the age of 25, they earn less than the bachelor's degreed worker. That has traditionally been the case in the US labor force. What's unique about this generation is today it takes more than 30 years for the STAR to earn the wages of a bachelor's degreed worker on the first day of work. That inequality is in part because employers are increasingly locking STARS out of precisely the jobs that have historically given them a pathway into the middle class, jobs like secretary, nurse, HR assistant. In our home state of Maryland, there are 1.4 million STARS who are experiencing this lack of opportunity. What's frustrating the most about that to us is that our analysis of the Maryland workforce suggests that almost half of Maryland STARS have the skills today to do significantly higher wage work if we gave them the opportunity. This lack of access disproportionately impacts workers of color. In Maryland, 58% of Black workers and 46% of Hispanic workers are STARS. Our employers are actually losing out on the invaluable skills this part of our workforce are bringing to our labor market, and stars are seeing their economic state decline. Our analysis shows that it will require deliberate choices from all of us to actually recognize their skills and provide them with opportunity to participate in Maryland's economic future. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, we're going to Kimberly Haven.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kimberly Haven, and I'm here from Prison Cells to PhD. This legislation is a forward-thinking effort and a way to level the employment playing field. Advocates working with many of you passed ban the box legislation, which removed the criminal conviction until further in the process. Education then became the next barrier that we needed to address. I once had a job interview where they stated they wanted a degree. I don't have one. And when I asked them about it, they said, we don't care if it's a degree in underwater basket weaving. It was the letters that they were after. Needless to say, I didn't get the job and they missed out on hiring me. I'm not talking about occupations where education is critical. I am talking about formerly incarcerated individuals whose education may have been interrupted by their incarceration. I'm talking about late in life career changers pursuing encore careers. And I'm talking about people who have worked in their jobs but cannot advance because they don't have those letters. The education question is one that can deter a job seeker. I have more years of experience than I want to admit to this committee. And if I were to face the question, I know that the algorithms used by Indeed, LinkedIn, Zip, all of them would move my application to the bottom of the pile, and none of them would recognize my incredible skill set and wealth of experience. We know that education is a pathway out of poverty, but so too is employment. Not everyone can afford to go to college. Not everyone wants to go to college. And for some, education was never an option. SB 66 can continue to level the playing field. It exposes employers to a potentially incredible job seeker pool who they otherwise would have overlooked, all because of not having a degree. I don't have a degree, yet I could run to be mayor of Baltimore City. I could run to be a state senator and be one of you. Heck, I could run to be governor without a college degree. Not that I would or that I would win, let's just be clear. However, why then does someone need to have a college degree to be an office manager? I urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 66. Thank you very much, and I'm open to questions or snarky comments.
And I must say, you're very impressive as a person testifying on this good bill. Any questions for this witness?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You made your point. Okay. Now we have one unfavorable, Sarah Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. My name is Sarah Price, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association. We respect the intent behind this bill, but we do have some concerns about the proposal. And we believe that employers deserve to have the full picture of an applicant's educational background and skill set when making hiring decisions. Every industry has jobs that require a certain level, style, or type of education or prior knowledge that may be necessary for success in the field. Most employers understand that some applicants may have faced barriers to education, and many job postings already allow for industry experience to replace educational requirements. Anti-discrimination laws also offer protection for individuals who feel that they were excluded from an opportunity due to the lack of a certain degree if the level of education can be proven to be unnecessary to perform the job. This proposal can create redundancies and complicates the hiring process. And frankly, it can't stop employers from only moving forward with applicants who do voluntarily disclose their educational background. We also have major concerns about what this could mean for entry-level applicants whose only qualification is their education. This proposal could exclude them from consideration due to lack of experience by prohibiting employers from receiving information about their education during that initial screening process. Given the barriers that already exist for many students who were able to go to school, but whose only option for industry experience was an unpaid or low-wage internship, this could have a serious negative impact on that next generation of workers. We believe that the bill may be unnecessary and could ultimately do a lot of harm. So we urge an unfavorable report. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I have the first question, I guess. If the retailers need a person who can do reasonable mathematics so that they can deal with the with a customer. And they could show that, or couldn't the retailers develop a module that simulates the kinds of experiences and the kinds of transactions that their new hiree would need to participate in to determine if the person can do the work or not?
Theoretically, yes. I would note, just for transparency, the Retailers Association has a partnership with the Main Street Maryland program. So while we represent retailers of all shapes and sizes, we also represent every business in a Main Street. So that could include lawyers, accountants, art gallery, any type of business that is in a Main Street is also a member of ours. So we are also representing the interests of.
Well, obviously,
various
if you're
industries.
hiring a lawyer or an attorney, they have the credentials that you're talking about in degree, so that isn't a question.
Right.
So not everybody with a degree turns out to be a good worker or to be competent.
True.
Okay, are there other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going next to Senate Bill 118. Senator Kramer is the the sponsor, and it's state personnel collective bargaining. And so, Senator, you'll have, as the sponsor, the time you need to lay out your case, and then each witness will have a maximum of 2 minutes each.
Well, thank you for that, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you, colleagues on the committee. Ben Kramer here, introducing Senate Bill 118. And colleagues, this is a bill that I know is familiar to you all because you have heard it before. And I am hoping that maybe this will be the year that we do right by those who stand to benefit from passage of this bill. And that is our graduate assistants in the University of Maryland system. The only thing this bill does is afford our graduate assistants the opportunity to choose to be part of a bargaining unit in negotiating their working conditions with the university system. We have great reason to be very, very proud of our university system. It is outstanding. We as Marylanders hold our heads up high when we talk about how outstanding our university system is. But the caveat here is that the system has historically failed to treat the workers in the system with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. And in that circumstance, the university becomes an embarrassment. And I have never understood why this system has to come in and fight what is a common sense, thoughtful proposal that they should voluntarily offer to their graduate assistants and not force legislators to come in and hold this conversation. We just had a budget briefing in our committee before this hearing started. The university system is receiving a $300 million increase in the budget this year over the last, which brings roughly their funding to $1.5 billion with a B billion dollars in this year's budget. Yet here we are nickel and diming with the university over treating the graduate assistants, the workers at the university system with dignity and respect. It is embarrassing. And I also don't understand how it is lost on the system that is the women and men, the workers on the campuses, our graduate assistants, who keep the trains running and make the system so great. It is not It is not the folks at the top who make this system great. It is the people out on our campuses doing the work, interacting with the students. They're the ones. And yet the university system continues to fail the workers. You know, the system's going to come in after I'm finished, and those who are here to express support of this legislation. And they're going to paint this picture of how wonderful the system is for the workers. They're going to paint this sort of Snow White meadow scene where the workers are frolicking through the beautiful forests, interacting and singing with bluebirds and robins and monarch butterflies. And they're going to tell us how wonderful it is to be a worker in the university system. And colleagues, my response to that is simply, if it is that outstanding, if it is that spectacular, why are they here opposing this bill? Because the bill simply provides the opportunity for the graduate assistants, the workers, to be part of a bargaining unit. Doesn't mandate it. And if those graduate assistants are so happy and they're so overwhelmed with the way they are being treated, then the system has nothing to worry about, nothing whatsoever. You know, the system's going to come in here and say, listen, we provide the workers with a meet and chat, a meet and greet, a meet and something that is the bottom line, a meet and meaningless event that they state. The graduate assistants can even bring labor representatives with them if they choose, implying that this process is somehow remotely comparable to having labor representing them if that is the choice they make. How disingenuous that is. This meet and greet or whatever it is means that the graduate assistant, the worker, gets to sit down and have a conversation that never has to be responded to. That's the extent of what it is they are offered. The system is going to follow me, and they're going to give you figures about salaries.
All right, now they should.
They're going to try to draw.
Okay, when they want me to, right?
Fred, whoever you, thank you. They will try to make comparisons between the salaries that are paid the graduate assistant workers, and they're going to try to create correlations between those salaries and the salaries of other universities that are part of the Big Ten, which is where the University of Maryland is. Once again, how disingenuous. I would like to have the university representatives share with me, share with this committee when they do that, what is the comparison in the cost of living in the Washington metropolitan area to perhaps that of Iowa City in Iowa? How about maybe comparing the cost of living in the Washington metropolitan area to that of, say, Madison, Wisconsin, or perhaps Lincoln, Nebraska? Once again, colleagues, how disingenuous and embarrassing for the university to be making these assertions. And let me tell you, the issues here go way beyond just cheap labor, which is what the university system is looking to achieve, but it's also about working conditions. And those working conditions are critically important and need to be part of the conversation. And Madam Chair, when this bill comes before us, You always share your reflections of the times when you were a graduate assistant and how hard you worked, how underpaid you were, and the conditions that you had to toil under. And I hope you will again share those with us, because it is exceedingly meaningful to hear those words. The fact of the matter is the system has proven throughout the pandemic that it does not know how to treat the workers. And it can vary from campus to campus. It can vary within an individual campus, because the workers are not the priority. And quite frankly, folks, if again, the conditions for our Maryland graduate students are so solid and they are so content and happy, and they should be so grateful, the system has nothing to fear. We don't fear the turtle, and the system has no reason to fear our graduate assistants by giving them the opportunity, if they desire, to be represented by a bargaining unit and achieve the dignity and respect they deserve as the workers, without whom this system could not possibly operate. With that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I thank you for your time. And I will also share with you, you have in your packets dozens of not just testimony in favor of this legislation, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students, graduate assistants, workers who signed a petition in support of this legislation. And out of respect for the time of this committee, we have very much limited the oral testimony that you will hear today. But this committee could have been filled with hundreds of people signing up in support, and I hope that is not lost on the committee. I hope you will take a moment to read through and reflect on the commentary that you see in the written testimony. And with that, the very select few individuals that are here to speak in favor of the bill will follow me. Madam Chair, thank you, and I certainly welcome any questions or comments.
Are there any questions? Well, so long as you brought my name up, I was one of those graduate teaching assistants at Purdue with no benefits, no nothing, not even a place I had to carry my coat around with me from place to place, not even a dedicated space for having a conference confidentially with a student. But I subsequently went to Maryland, where I got a PhD, and I watched other people go through the same thing that I had. Now it's decades and decades later, and nothing's changed. All right, let's go to Sarah Price. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute, where am I? Let's go to Simon Shedd.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Simon Sheaf. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations for Fearless Student Employees, a group representing the thousands of grad workers across the USM, more than 1,300 of whom have signed that petition that Senator Kramer mentioned. Chair Kelly, last year you mentioned something at this hearing that interested me, which is that you used to be a debate coach. I myself am a debate coach, so I'd like to review a couple of the arguments that the system made last year at this hearing in support of this bill. Of course, I won't be able to answer all of the USM's bad arguments in my 2 minutes, but if any member of the committee would like to meet with me, I'll be happy to answer them then. First, the university system asserts that meet and confer is sufficient to protect graduate student interests. Meet and confer is a process that was created to protect graduate students from university administration. So if the people a system was set up to protect against tell you it's working, and the people who tell you who it was set up to protect tell you it is not, I think you know who you should believe. Second, the university system will tell you that stipends have gone up in the last few years. First, it's important to note that this is not true on all campuses. Second, the university's own estimates show that stipends are still under the cost of attendance and certainly under the cost of living in the College Park area. And third, collective bargaining rights are not about stipends. Of course, compensation is an issue that would be discussed, but collective bargaining is about set working hours, enforceable contracts, family leave, grievance systems, workplace conditions, and a dozen other issues that matter to our workplace environment. I want to remind the committee that this bill does not create a collective bargaining unit. It lets grad employees make that decision. All of the system's arguments against this bill essentially say that we are not mature or intelligent enough to make that decision. I would suggest if they really believe that, they should stop having graduate students teach courses in economics, public policy, business, labor history, or political science. And it should embarrass the university, whose role it is to educate us, that their graduate students are apparently so immature and unintelligent. Graduate workers are workers, and the fact that we are students does not detract from the value of our work. We come up with the fearless ideas that this university loves to talk about. Why does the university fear this idea so much? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of this witness? Thanks for your testimony. Karen Rosenblatt.
Thank you, committee members, for giving me the opportunity to address you today. My name is Karen Rosenblatt. I'm a professor of history on the College Park campus, and I'm here to speak in support of SB 0118. I've been teaching at the University of Maryland since 2008, and recently I have taken on the position as vice president of our campus chapter of the American Association of University Professors. I have mentored dozens of master's and PhD students. And I want to address two arguments that the university and the USM administration are making. The first one is that the process of meet and consult is working. They are also going to suggest, and this is the second argument I want to refute, that a graduate student union will undermine the relationship between graduate students and their advisors. Based on my own experience and that of my colleagues, I think this is patently false. First of all, if the current system is working, our graduate assistants would not be living and working in poverty. Yes, they have health insurance, but their stipends are not enough to pay for rent and groceries in our region. Many are forced to take out loans. They come to graduate school already with loans from their undergraduate degrees, and many have to take on additional debt to complete their graduate studies. And many of them do so without the promise of a well-paying job at the end of their degree. Many of our graduate students work second jobs that take time away from their studies and their work at the university. Low stipends are not the only issue graduate students face and that the current process has not addressed. Many work more hours than stipulated in their contracts. And I see this repeatedly among my own students. I have spent hours counseling my students, not about their studies, but about how to talk to their supervisors about the unreasonable demands that are placed on them. I have to remind them repeatedly that as their contracts stipulate, they are first and foremost students because they are not being treated that way. And this slows their progress towards their degrees. And I will remind you that this is a metric by which the university is measured. A union would give graduate assistants the independent voice they need to advocate for better pay and better work conditions. It would improve the education we offer our students by allowing them and their mentors to spend more time worrying about their studies. As a faculty member, I'm also very concerned about the effects that our workload and low stipends have on our ability to recruit and retain the best graduate students. When students apply to our graduate programs, they ask about workload and they ask about the stipends. Simply put, our stipends aren't competitive, and as a result, our departments can't be competitive. Even though intellectually we may be very good, students go to peer institutions in Chile, Urbana, or Columbus, Ohio. I want to turn now to how collective bargaining rights will in fact improve the lives not just the lives of graduate students, but also the relations between graduate students and their faculty members. And I speak now not just as a member of the faculty, but as a former graduate student myself at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The University of Wisconsin had the first graduate student union formed in 1966, and I was a member and shop steward. I observed how across disparate departments, the Graduate Student Union helps students and faculty understand their rights and responsibilities, and this included the supervisors of student workers. These faculty rarely asked too much of their graduate assistants because they had full knowledge of what was appropriate. And graduate assistants had specific actionable mechanisms for addressing unreasonable demands. This was because the Teaching Assistants Association, the union, made and distributed leaflets to both faculty and students that outlined expectations. It helped publicize terms of employment in meetings and through a system of shop stewards. Finally, I want to note, as Senator Kramer has also noted, that the objections raised by the USM administrators are not objections to the right to collectively bargain, which is what this committee is currently considering. If this bill is passed, graduate students will still need to take steps to secure a union and have it recognized legally. In that process, graduate students will debate, faculty will weigh in, administrators will have their say as well. Anyone and everyone can have their opinion at that point, and they'll be able to make their arguments. But the university and the USM administrators want to shortcut that debate within our universities by taking the decision out of the hands of those most directly affected.
I hate to butt in, but you're going over. Could you wrap up in the next 30 seconds?
Sure. As
if
a
you want to
faculty,
send us something back in writing, we'd be happy to receive it.
Sure. I did submit some testimony in writing. So I'm particularly dismayed when the administration claims to uphold the faculty-student relation because they have not consulted with the faculty members. So I urge you in closing, in the strongest possible terms, to report favorably on this bill and report it out of committee.
Are there any questions? Okay, thanks so much. Now we're going to the unfavorables. Patrick Hogan.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Feldman, members of the committee. I'm Patrick Hogan, Vice Chancellor for Government Relations for the University System of Maryland. And certainly thank you and appreciate the opportunity to share our concerns on SB 118 today. We have submitted written testimony, so I'll be brief and just touch on some of the key points from our testimony. You will also hear from some of the real experts from our campuses who are also signed up to testify, who work directly with our graduate students. The USM has worked over the last decade to improve the status of the USM's approximately 6,000 graduate students. And to comment on some of the remarks that Senator Kramer made, I don't know if it's a snow white meadow, but we do have some beautiful campuses. And there are still, as I said, thousands of graduate assistants who take advantage of this opportunity. And while there are always issues to work out, we do think we have a good program. The senator also commented on the budget, which we are certainly grateful for, the increase in our budget, and ask for your support on that. Do plan to, so some of the salary increases, the senator mentioned about a $300 million increase. A big chunk of that gets to salary increases, which these graduate assistants will get the benefit of as well. So we have policies and processes in place to support these students and enable communication on various issues. Focused first on the fact that these individuals, again, are first and foremost students and they're earning advanced degrees. The USM policy on graduate assistantships addresses a few of the following issues. Due process protection and grievance rights. It covers clarification of the university's expectations regarding duties and time commitments. For example, a full-time assistantship requires a student to work about an average of 20 hours per week. Graduate assistants also do receive the following benefits. They receive, as you heard, monetary stipends with an increase each year of their contract. They also receive tuition-free education worth about an average of $22,000 annually, and most receive fully subsidized healthcare. Additionally, and you heard it mentioned, our institutions have established the meet and confer process, which gives these students the opportunity to share concerns and gives them the right to engage a labor representative during this process if they so choose. The USM also has a process known as shared governance. It's at the institution level and at the USM level, with councils of faculty, staff, and students empowered to continually raise issues with the administration. And the shared governance process is a collaboration, a working relationship, which provides necessary follow-through to address issues and concerns. We worry that collective bargaining would fundamentally change the relationship from that of a mentor and a mentee in these educational programs to more of an employer and employee relationship. And we believe that the appropriate policies and processes are already in place with ongoing communication and a process for resolving issues and concerns. And for these issues, we do ask for an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 118. And as I mentioned, we've got a few folks from the University of Maryland College Park and Towson University who are signed up to testify as well, Madam Chair. I'm happy to answer questions, but the committee may be better served to hear from those panelists first. But any way you want to handle it.
On behalf of the committee, I would ask if we could get a copy of the kind of cover letter that you send out when you're recruiting students to be graduate assistants and the documents that they are required to sign when you have worked out a deal with them. We would find that very helpful.
Sure, Madam Chair. I can work on gathering that for the committee.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, if not, then we're going to Stephen Fetter in favor.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I'm Steve Fetter, Dean of the Graduate School at College Park, and rather than summarize my written testimony, I'd like to address the question I've been asked most often in past hearings, which is why shouldn't GAs have the same rights as all other employees, including collective bargaining? When we hire a faculty or staff member, we do a search to identify the most qualified candidate with training and experience in teaching and research. We offer them a salary that reflects that training and experience, as well as their job responsibilities and performance. We work to retain them and hope they'll be with us for decades. But when we offer graduate assistantships, we offer them only to full-time graduate students, mostly to PhD applicants, to entice them to come to Maryland. The assistantship is based entirely on an applicant's promise as a student. Most programs offer GAs to all PhD students. The GA stipend isn't a salary. It isn't compensation for work performed. It's financial assistance to help cover the cost of the degree. That's why the stipend is exempt from payroll taxes and the tuition benefit is exempt from income tax under IRS rules. The stipend doesn't depend on prior training and experience. All GAs in a unit receive the same stipend, regardless of what they're doing and whether their performance is average or superb. Our goal is the timely graduation of all students, including GAs. We want them to leave the university and to leave as soon as they're ready. We're committed to their academic and professional development as researchers and scholars, but not as employees. An assistantship, in short, is part of a student's education. It's not employment. This is particularly clear for research assistants who usually do research for their dissertation, research that is required regardless of whether or not they have a GA. Collective bargaining can have no bearing on the amount or quality of work needed to earn a PhD and demonstrate the ability to do original research and scholarship. That's why most universities with collective bargaining exclude research assistantships, and their inclusion in SB 118 is particularly problematic. But the connection is also clear. The connection to education is also clear for teaching assistants. Even for those who won't go on to faculty positions, learning to explain complex concepts is essential for all researchers. You only understand a subject when you can explain it to others. And my greatest concern is that collective bargaining would change the relationship from one of student and mentor to one of employee and supervisor, and that will negatively affect the educational experience. And so I urge you to return an unfavorable report. Thank you.
I just must comment, I've got a a master's from NYU, one from Purdue, a PhD from College Park, and I've watched a lot of people do this work, and I've been a graduate assistant myself. I have just never seen the fuzzy wuzzy arrangements that some of you guys are describing today. And in fact, when you talk about the mentor-mentee arrangement, I just never really saw that mentoring with regard to even the job performance of the graduate teaching assistants. It's as if I'm from Never Land, but anything you guys can send us that would help us to see the documents that you use to enter into your legal arrangements, whatever they are, and what benefits you claim that the students can expect from the experience, what they must do to carry out their part of the bargain, and then how you evaluate all of that would be helpful for us. I know you're frustrated at this coming up year after year, and so are we. And we'd like to make some progress toward whatever is reasonable. And so we're going to wait a little while to vote, to ask you to get us your typical packages of what you normally would send out as you negotiate with the typical student who's going to assist you in this way. Senator Kramer has a question for you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And, I'll ask these questions of both Patrick Hogan or Steve Fetter. You both mentioned, and Madam Chair, you just touched on that, this issue of it's going to change this warm and fuzzy feeling of mentor and mentee to something other than what the fact is. An employer and an employee of the university system. Can you share with me, sir, with specificity, how, if these students chose to engage a bargaining unit to represent their interests in having conversations about working conditions, for instance, having a place to hang their coat, having a desk to do their work, how that would change this warm and fuzzy mentor-mentee relationship? Mr. Fetter?
I'll take a stab at that. So about 1,600 of our graduate assistants are research assistants. The vast majority of them are, as a research assistant, doing exactly the same research that they are doing for their dissertation, which is required for their PhD. And their supervisor as a GA is the same person who is their faculty advisor for their dissertation.
And can we pause right there 1 second, Mr. Fetter, because I apologize. Are you telling me that that individual you just referenced is the one who's going to be sitting at the bargaining table, working out the terms and conditions of what it is that will be required of these graduate assistants? Is that what you're implying, sir?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can speak from my own experience. So I was fortunate enough to have such a graduate assistantship, which paid me to do my dissertation research. There is nothing that I did as a graduate assistant that I was not required to do for my degree. And I'm at a loss to know how a union could have somehow intervened in the process of the conditions of my research as a PhD student.
And Mr. Fetter, what if the answer to that is it would not? The whole point of this bill and the opportunity to have, if they choose, a bargaining unit represent them, is that the subjects of that representation are up for discussion. And it could be the scenario you just presented to this committee will be completely unaffected by the fact that they now have this representation. There may be other issues in other areas, but I guess we can't find that out if you, sir, come in here and tell us everything is warm and fuzzy, leave us alone. These people are just children. We know what's best for them. And the fact of the matter is, you're not being honest with this committee when you say, oh, but it'll disrupt the mentor-mentee relationship. And if I may, you.
Senator, I'm going
1600
to, since you
Yeah, just a moment,
had
Madam Chair.
significant time, and we've
I
got two
understand, but
more
we need
people
to
on
have the
this bill.
conversation.
On your
So,
next bill,
Mr.
we've got
Fetter.
26 people signed up to testify, and then we got a voting session.
I
you-
understand, Madam Chair, but we only get to have this committee hearing once a year.
I know.
And listen, hopefully this is the last time, Madam Chair. I hope we'll get it for a vote this session, and maybe we don't have to go through this again next year. Mr. Fetter, what about the remaining 5,000 graduate assistants beyond the 1,600 research assistants?
I was only speaking of College Park, so the remainder
We're
is
talking across the system.
20. No, I can only speak for College Park. So at 1,600 at College Park, about 1,600 are research assistants, about 2,000 are teaching assistants, and the remainder are administrative assistants.
And what about the 2,000 teaching administrator assistants and the administrative assistants? Do you think maybe that somehow this will disrupt their mentor-mentee relationship?
It's quite possible
So
that
why?
if
Why?
there's that it would exclude, that if there was collective bargaining, it would exclude administrative assistants under current
Oh.
USM rules.
Okay. We want to go to these last two speakers who have testimony on this bill so we can get to your other bill. David Ownby.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I'm David Ownby, Interim Dean of Graduate Studies and Professor of Chemistry at Towson University, as well as a Reisterstown resident. So thank you very much for your representation of my community, my hometown. Towson University is the largest public university in the Baltimore region with an enrollment of approximately 23,000 students, with 3,000 of those as graduate students. TU is currently developing a plan to expand its research and graduate student capacity. At Towson University, the majority of our assistants, unlike College Park, are master's students. Students are only with us for maybe 2 years at a time. So even though they are with us for a short amount of time, it is important that faculty and student develop a professional mentoring relationship that would be limited by a more rigid employee-employer situation that unionization would impose on building the trust and support of that faculty-student relationship. TU utilizes the meet and confer process and graduate student representation on many of our shared governance committees to ensure their voice is heard. In response to their concerns, TU has increased graduate stipends each of the last 3 years, resulting in a 60% increase for the lowest paid assistants and a 30% increase for the highest paid. Since we invite all graduate students to meet and confer meetings, we don't limit them because we have a small number of students on assistantships overall. A large variety of concerns are brought forward, and at many times the solutions are already in existence on campus, and we are able to direct students to the correct resources. In other cases, individualized solutions are developed in conjunction with the students, and if something that is a larger group concern is identified, then we as administrators work with the students towards resolving those issues. With this, I conclude my brief testimony, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you. Jennifer King Rice.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our testimony today. I'm Jennifer King Rice, Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost at the University of Maryland, College Park, and I am really pleased to have this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Prior to beginning my role as provost just this past July, so I'm very new to this role, I served as Dean of the College of Education, and just as an aside, had the privilege of working with several of the Kirwan Commission committees. And I just want to take just a moment to thank you for your excellent work on behalf of students and educators and schools throughout Maryland. I've been on the faculty here at the University of Maryland for over 26 years, and I've worked with many graduate assistants on various research projects during that time. Working with students in that capacity provides a unique opportunity to teach and mentor the next generation of scholars and leaders and professionals in a way that really can't be accomplished through traditional graduate coursework. Graduate assistantships are very much educational for our students. Now, as a university administrator, I've listened to the concerns of graduate students, and I've also heard many of their positive stories. Warm and fuzzy, I'm not sure I'd use that to describe it, but there are very positive experiences as well. But in terms of those concerns, I'm working to continue the ongoing efforts led by our graduate school dean, Steve Fetter, to make conditions even better for our GAs and to ensure that they have a positive and productive learning experience during their time at the University of Maryland. Through our meet and confer process, students can raise concerns, and they do, and we have responded to those concerns. We've raised minimum stipends by 37% since July 2018. The average stipend is now over $23,000, but this is for 20 hours a week for 9 months a year. So it's equivalent to $61,000 for full-time work. Just something to keep in mind. It also includes free tuition and the same health insurance available to faculty and staff. Departments with external funding are able to pay more. Some pay over $30,000, and others would like to pay more, but are often unable to do so because of limited state budgets. We've also addressed concerns about expectations for the work hours, a grievance process, and leave. The bottom line is that graduate assistantships are an essential part of the learning experience for many of our students, and we're working to make that a positive and a rewarding component of their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask you just finally, if you could name 3 or 4 maybe state university systems where there is the opportunity that these students are seeking?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Steve to talk to that because he's kept track of that across the Big Ten and across the country as well. So Steve?
Yes, within the Big Ten, there are 5, Rutgers, University of Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Michigan State have collective bargaining.
And they still remain intact and they aren't bankrupt. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question. Ms. Rice, you repeatedly brought up again this issue of meet and confer and where a student can raise concerns. Let's say a student comes in and says, I want to meet and confer. What is the responsibility beyond that on the university system? Must you respond to that student? Must the system respond to that student?
To meet with that student or to do what that student wants?
To come in, let's say there's meet and confer. Is there an obligation for the university system to even respond?
There's not an obligation to do what the students are asking. No.
No, ma'am, that's not my question.
I'm not to meet and respond to what? To their concerns?
I am asking, is there even a requirement for the university system to respond to the student? The student comes in and says, here's the grievance I have, here's the problem. Is there anything in the policy of the university system that states the system must respond to the concern raised?
I'm going to let Steve answer that question. I see your hand up, so I'll let you take it.
A meet and confer refers to meeting with a group of graduate assistant representatives. And we are obliged to do that at least once a semester. And yes, we do that.
Okay,
For an individual
student,
student, if an individual student has a concern, we do have a formal grievance process. And yes, we are required to follow that process in university policy.
And you still have yet to answer my question. Is there any mandate to respond to the group or to the student? You are giving me everything but the answer I am asking, sir.
Senator, if I could, Madam Chair, could I comment on?
No, that's fine. Patrick, I've made my point. The answer is there is none.
And there wouldn't necessarily be
Wait.
a requirement under collective bargaining either, Senator. It would be negotiated. And whatever the concern would be, it would have to be negotiated, just as they negotiate through the process that happens now. They talk through issues and they try to come to some sort of understanding.
Then why are you here opposing collective bargaining, Patrick?
As I said, Senator, we do
Process, why are you here in opposition, sir?
we do have real concerns that it fundamentally changes the relationship of one that's more of an educational relationship.
Okay, Senator
Thank you for
Senator Reedy has his hand raised, and after
Yes.
that, if we
Yes, thank
could,
you.
because we've got 26 people waiting on your other bill, and we'd like to get to those
Absolutely.
people.
And I am, I'm just very curious because I've been listening to this discussion for a while now. I don't know if it's Dr. Rice or Mrs. Rice. Did you say that these students are working typically 20 hours a week? Was that what you said?
Yes, that's the expectation of their graduate assistant research responsibilities.
Okay. And,
They may be doing there, as Dr. Fetter said, they may be doing more beyond that. That's their own research. So sometimes it's hard to draw that line when they're research assistants.
because they're students and they're also assisting, correct? I mean, that's the point of a graduate assistant.
Right.
Okay, yeah, it's just very interesting discussion to me. I think some interesting points have been brought up. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I want to thank everybody who's participated, and I'll look forward to receiving in short order, if you could, the paper trail of the documents that you use. I think we'll understand a lot more. We'd like to see what you're asking of the students, what responses they need to give, what parameters describe the bases of the answers and so on that inform your responses. We'd appreciate.
We'll get you that info, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, we'd like to go now to Senate Bill 99. And Senator Kramer, you're on. You have the time you need, and then each of the speakers who have signed up will have 2 minutes each. Because we got a voting session tonight, you know. Okay.
He's muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
I see that, Madam Chair, and with all due respect, I appreciate the fact that we have a voting session, but we also have a responsibility to have thorough discussion at these bill hearings so that everyone fully understands, particularly the public, of the relevance and the importance of what this legislation is about, why we are here. And I think it does a disservice to the public, those people who are watching this hearing, if we do not fully vet and have the conversation and the opportunity to go deeply into what conversations need to be held.
You're right. I just don't want you to lose any of your people for your new bill.
Yes, thank you for that, Madam Chair. I appreciate your looking out for me. And we have before us Senate Bill 99, Madam Chair, colleagues. This bill also will sound a little bit familiar to you. We have, in the past year, lost 450 million Americans to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. It is a staggering number. Excuse me, 450,000, I apologize, I said million. And we have every reason to be dismayed and concerned about that significant loss of life. And my following comment is in no way intended to minimize that significant loss of life, but it also, this comment is to help put into perspective the fact that we have lost in the last year 480,000 individuals to tobacco-related disease. And as tragic as the pandemic is, it is equally tragic, and it should not be overlooked, that every single year, year in and year out, we lose almost 500,000 of our citizens to tobacco-related diseases. In Maryland, we have lost over 13,000 of our friends and neighbors and family to the pandemic. We have lost approximately the exact same number of people in the same period of time to tobacco-related diseases. And my point here is to emphasize why it is we are having this conversation. We're going to hear, perhaps repeatedly, from opposition to this bill that tobacco is a legal product. And it is. It is a legal product. It is also a regulated legal product because it's a drug with incredibly powerful addictive properties. The bill before you would enable local jurisdictions to adopt tobacco regulations in their localities to best serve the interests of their communities, their residents, the desires of the people who have elected them to represent them at the local level. The regulations, whatever it is the locals may choose to do when granted this ability, must be at least as stringent as the state provisions that exist now. They can't go below what it is the state is doing. That's it, folks. That is what this bill does. It affords each of our local jurisdictions to tackle this issue as they deem appropriate. You know, we have to acknowledge there comes an evolution of thought. And where there was a time when tobacco smoking was thought of as being sexy and elegant and was promoted by the industry as being so, we now realize the consequences and what it is the industry has done to mislead us. And we have a responsibility as legislators to let our communities respond as they deem appropriate to this issue. Taxation will not be a part of what this bill affords local jurisdictions. Taxation doesn't change. Issuance of licenses is not part of this bill. Licenses do not change. What we will be doing is the same thing we do with another legal drug, and that's alcohol. And we afford our local jurisdictions to address how alcohol is handled in their local jurisdictions. And this bill simply affords a similar ability for local jurisdictions to address tobacco. We're going to hear from the opposition that the state will be losing all kinds of revenues, that some local jurisdictions will shut down tobacco. That's a fallacy. No jurisdiction is going to be terminating access of any kind to tobacco in their jurisdiction. And the outcomes for the tax revenue that will be generated, I suggest, will be negligible. But the fact of the matter is, Madam Chair, members of the committee, perhaps we should be reflecting on the policy of funding state government on the loss of in a business whose model is predicated on the loss of the very people they sell the product to, the loss of the people, the disease that will be contracted from the people who are buying the product. That's their business model. And they know they have to have access to our youth. They have to be able to push vaping and cigarettes on our children because they know that is the only way they can maintain their market share, because their product inherently will kill the consumers who are buying it. And we should have the capacity and the ability at our local government level to say, you know what? These are the actions that we think are in the best interests of our residents. And for those local jurisdictions, Madam Chair, who are very comfortable with the policies of the state as they exist, they don't have to do a thing. They don't have to change a thing. They can continue to do business on this subject just as they are doing today. So each jurisdiction can continue to operate as they determine and they see fit. And when we have some of the opponents come in and tell us how this will create havoc in the marketplace, and our residents and consumers will be, virtual zombies incapable of figuring out what happens if they're in one jurisdiction or another. I proffered to you, committee. I think they are selling short. Our residents, I have no question, they will be able to understand and figure out what the process is in their particular jurisdiction. With that, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. All right, your first witness is Laura Hale, and witnesses, you have 2 minutes each.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, and especially to Senator Kramer for sponsoring this legislation. My name is Laura Hale. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the American Heart Association, and we offer our strong support for Senate Bill 99. Before you today, you also have letters of support from many of the counties who wanted to express their support, including Howard, Montgomery, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel. And Councilmember Turner is also here to speak from Prince George's County. Prior to 2013, our local counties could address tobacco control, not taxes, not licenses, but they could respond to what's going on. And there's always been a partnership between our counties and the state when it comes to public health. What we're looking for today is to continue that partnership and allow that to return, so that when we address tobacco, that it's not just a state issue, it is a local and a state issue in partnership with you all setting the standard for across the state and the localities to be able to respond some of the unique issues that they are seeing in their counties. I also have support today from our Tobacco Free Coalition, and several of the members are here to speak as well. But just so you know, there's a whole large group of us who are very, very much supportive of this across the state and for all of our health. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, we're going next to Kathleen Hoke.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Kathy Hoke, a professor at the University of Maryland Carey School of Law. I've been working in tobacco regulation at the state and local level in Maryland for more than 20 years. I want to make 2 points today, and I'm happy to do more in the question and answer period. But first, that preemption of local public health powers in Maryland, particularly with respect to tobacco control, is counter to our system of home rule powers and inconsistent with what this body has done in this space previously. And second, that Unlike what you will hear from the opponents, the sky will not fall when you revive local power and public health in the tobacco space. It didn't fall before 2013, and it will remain where it belongs after you pass SB 99. On the first issue of preemption, I dare say if there was no Altatus decision, the Court of Appeals decision, and we presented a bill to you today to say, preempt all local tobacco regulation in the state, this body wouldn't have passed that in 2013 and wouldn't do it today. But that is what the Altatus decision has done functionally. And you have the opportunity with SB 99 to tell the court, nope, that's not what we intended, and to revive that power that previously existed in the local jurisdictions. How do I know also? Well, when you pass the Clean Indoor Air Act, local jurisdictions had around the state responded to needs in their community for smoke-free bars and restaurants, and then you passed it at the local level. And importantly, you said, no local preemption here. If the locals want to do more in this tobacco space, they may. So again, I believe that you believe local public health power in tobacco is incredibly important. And then on the sky not falling, prior to 2013, what we saw in the tobacco space at the local level was reasonable and rational regulation that responded to community concerns. In Prince George's County, that looked like the cigar packaging regulation. They had a problem with youth uptake of these small cigars, and they responded with a reasonable, rational regulation. There are other examples I can speak to later if you prefer, but my point is the sky didn't fall before. We saw reasonable, rational regulation at the local level. So for these reasons, I hope you issue a favorable report on SB 99. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Okay, we're going next to Jocelyn Collins.
Good afternoon, Chair Kelly, Vice Chair Feldman, and members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Jocelyn Collins, and I'm the Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, better known as ACS-CAN. On behalf of ACS-CAN and those we serve, we support Senate Bill 99. Tobacco preemption is a significant and quiet threat to public health that affects health equity. Our ability to continue to make progress against cancer relies heavily on eliminating the inequities that exist in cancer prevention and care, including tobacco policies on the local level. While individuals should have equal opportunity to live a healthy life, big tobacco continues to impede on this. For example, in Baltimore, there are 5 times more tobacco retailers per square mile in the lowest income neighborhoods than in the highest income neighborhoods as defined by the US Census. While in Prince George's County, there's an oversaturation of tobacco retailers. Tobacco industry marketing strategies have led to disparities in tobacco use, including higher use of tobacco products in populations of lower socioeconomic status, Blacks, AIAN, youth, and LGBT communities. The need for localities to be able to address tobacco control is not only needed, but a must. If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that localities' ability to regulate is vital, especially as the CDC names smoking a risk for developing severe illness from COVID-19. It's time to give back locals the ability to address tobacco, and we ask for a favorable report of Senate Bill 99. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Okay, we're going next to Eric Galley. Eric, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Eric Galley, and I'm here on behalf of the American Heart Association. I'm also pretty old, and like some of you, was here in 2007 when the General Assembly passed the smoking ban. And those of you who were here know we did not get there in a straight line. It took many years, and it was a very difficult challenge. And then we only got there when Montgomery County and Howard County and Prince George's County and Talbot County, and then in the end, Baltimore City decided to do it as well. We needed that experimentation. People were worried about how it was going to impact businesses. So then by the time we got to the state level, we had 2 or 3 years of data and anecdotal information about how it would impact. And many of your fellow legislators had lived with it and had seen how it was. And if we didn't have that data and that experience, and that ability to show people that everything would be okay because they had actually lived it, we probably would not have gotten that vote when we got it. We may not still have gotten that vote. It was very important. It was a very important piece of that battle that there was local experience for people to look back at. So I urge you, there are more things we need to do. That experimentation in the counties is very important, and we would urge you to restore things back to the way they were back in the good old days when we were doing these things. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there questions for this witness? Okay, we're going next to Cynthia Strembaugh.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cynthia Stremba. I am speaking here on behalf of Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes. We're a grassroots volunteer-based organization, and we represent parents both nationally and here on the ground in Maryland. We want to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance SB 99 to bring back local control to Maryland localities. As parents, we care deeply about the health and safety of our children. In the past, Maryland was able to address issues with public health, issues that affect our kids' health and safety where it belongs, in the hands of local health departments. Public health is at its best when operating at the local level, particularly on issues of tobacco control. You know, as parents, we've seen that delays at the federal and state level have made our jobs infinitely harder. Children's health and safety have suffered in those delays. I think you're aware that children today are being exposed to risky behaviors like never before. You know, there are issues that as parents, we just aren't privy to because we aren't in the world the same way our kids are. For instance, we hear almost every day that there are new challenges to health and safety of our kids being exposed through social media. New nicotine products and subsequent addiction are part of those challenges. But as parents, we don't see what they see, and we often don't find out about them until after the fact, and often because our children are already addicted. We shouldn't be forced to have to wait as children are enticed into dangerous behaviors when localities are at the ready to respond to the specific needs of what's happening here and now. Parents need their local government to be able to respond quickly to changing norms in their communities and to have the authority to act at the local level.
I hate to butt in, but you're over your time.
I am. Well, I'm finished. So, you know, please vote in favor of SB 99.
Thanks so much. We're going next to Todd Turner.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Finance Committee, as well as my local state senators, Senator Augustine and Senator Benson. Good afternoon. I'm Todd Turner. I'm a member of the Prince George's County Council, and I'm here to testify in my own capacity. Unfortunately, the County Council just got back into session, so we haven't had an opportunity to review the bill. But I will note that the Prince George's County Council did support last year's version of this exact same bill. So I suspect you will receive a position statement in support as well. I come to you not only as a member of the County Council from the jurisdiction that started this issue with the legislation that we did, but I was also, prior to being a council member, I was a staff member and actually drafted the legislation. And I see Professor Hoke is there who assisted us at that time. So obviously it's been almost 12 years since that legislation was first passed, and obviously more than 8 years since the Court of Appeals decision, in essence saying that because of the activity by the state in this area that there was implied preemption. What this bill does is to try to correct that and put us, as Mr. Galley indicated, back in a position where we were back before this decision. And it is, as Ms. Hale said, about partnerships. We work together with the state to do enforcement, particularly of tobacco, and now currently, obviously, vaping, which was not necessarily back when we did this original legislation in 2011. And so, and obviously, you've already heard that this is not an issue about counties having revenue or taxes or licensing. That's not what we're trying to do here. But this is an enforcement issue. And if Senator Benson remembers, this legislation actually came out by former council member Sam Dean to address particular issues related to youth and others having access to vehicles to do something illegal. Obviously, it's fair to say in the last 10 or 12 years, the position with respect particularly to marijuana has changed in the state. But now we do have vaping, which was not an issue at the time that we passed this legislation in Prince George's County. So again, this is about partnership. We're trying to, again, work with the state. I know in legislation that this General Assembly passed in 2000, you transferred kind of that enforcement responsibility to a new agency.
You are over time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for that. And then we look forward to getting your support for Senate Bill 99.
Thank you. All right, we're going next to Shelley Bressler.
Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Bressler, and I am here today to speak in favor of SB 99. Families across the state of Maryland are dealing with children addicted to nicotine, thanks to the predatory practices of big tobacco and targeting teens to become their next customer. Over the past 2 decades, the Maryland Department of Health, along with their counterparts across the nation, have worked hard in educating young people of the dangers of smoking. And this is a generation that never would have initiated the use of tobacco. However, we are seeing all that hard work now backslide and tobacco rates of teens going up. I am here today on behalf of Parents Against Vaping to express my support of SB 99. Introduced by Senator Kramer. This bill would allow Maryland counties and municipalities to enact and enforce their own tobacco-related ordinances. Maryland is a very big and diverse state. Having a one-size-fits-all policy for tobacco control is not smart to do. A policy that addresses the needs of the city of Baltimore might not be appropriate for Salisbury, for Frostburg, or for Waldorf. Preemption prohibits local governments from having any ability to respond to the needs of the community. In addition, preemption takes away the local control of cities and counties along the state borders. These cities and towns will be at a disadvantage in not being able to respond when similar ordinances pass in Delaware, DC, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and they change their rules regarding sales and enforcement activities. The parents of Maryland are looking for more tools to address the issues of sales of these products to their children. Eliminating the ability for localities to enact ordinances to address sales and enforcement may make this fight that much harder, and we will have children lifelong nicotine addicts. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak. On behalf of the families of Maryland dealing with nicotine addicted children, I ask you to support the passage of SB 99. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Julie Reinhardt.
Madam Chair Kelly, Vice Chair Feldman, and members of the Senate Finance Committee, good afternoon. I am here today to strongly urge your support for Senate Bill 99, a bill which would return power back to local governments to regulate the sale and distribution of tobacco products. My name is Julie Mendel Reinhardt, a resident of Bethesda and an advocate for the Maryland pod of Parents Against Vaping e-cigarettes, otherwise known as PAVE. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Maryland PAVE is a state chapter of Parents Against Vaping e-cigarettes, a national nonprofit parent volunteer-run organization dedicated to educating parents about the hazards of youth vaping and advocating for legislation on the local, state, and national levels to keep tobacco products away from kids and prevent them from the hazards and highly addictive nature of nicotine. As you know, the youth vaping epidemic is a grave public health issue facing our country. In Maryland, data from 2021 shows that 5% of high school students smoke cigarettes, 7% of high school students smoke cigars, and 23% of high school students use e-cigarettes. There are 1,400 kids in Maryland who become new daily smokers each year, too. These numbers are alarming and demonstrate the need for local governments to have the power to regulate the tobacco sales and distribution within their respective jurisdictions when necessary. The needs among jurisdictions are heterogeneous, and without such authority, local governments cannot respond to the critical public health matters to protect their own constituents. History, too, demonstrates the importance of doing away with this state preemptive power. For example, in Maryland, it was the local jurisdictions of Baltimore City, Howard, Talbot, Montgomery, Charles, Prince George's County, Baltimore counties, which passed clean indoor air laws prior to the statewide one. Those local actions set the examples for the state, and in 2007, the state did precisely that and took that historic step. Further, in 2009, Prince George's County became one of the first jurisdictions to pass an ordinance imposing a minimum pack size for cheap cigars. Prince George's County rightly responded to the increased use of individually sold cigars by young people in its jurisdiction.
I hate to interrupt, but you're over time.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity, and I urge you to strongly support SB 99. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Willie Flowers.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. My name is Willie Flowers, and I'm here on behalf of the NAACP, but I joined the coalition led by the American Heart Association to put forth this legislation, and just to reflect that we strongly support Senate Bill 99. I know that everything has been framed around many details of the legislation, so I won't go back into that, but I do want to remind the committee and everyone assembled that the major impact on the reckless use of marketing, as we know historically has been directed at Black and Brown communities, affects the African-American community in the state of Maryland in ways that we can quantify. And, as Senator Kramer expressed earlier, the impact on smoking-related cancer deaths is enormous. And our interest is looking at the frame of every Black and Brown community in the state of Maryland being hit viciously by marketing that is directly affects the health outcomes of those communities. And as you know, at this point in history, it's unfortunate to say that African-Americans specifically are being recorded for how we die. And smoking is one of those elements that increases the chances of us dying, and particularly young people who are addicted from a very young age. So this bill, shrouded in the reality of preemption, is a step in the right direction. The NAACP supports Senate Bill 99, and we certainly hope that the committee can support the bill and push it out of here. So I want to thank you for the time to present, and hopefully you see the value of passing Senate Bill 99.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is DePaul Niebuhr.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is DePaul Niebuhr. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of SB 99. As you've already heard, Altatus v. Prince George's County took away the authority of local governments to regulate the sale, distribution, and packaging of tobacco products. This bill returns this authority to our local governments while not undercutting existing protections adopted by this body. Unfortunately, Altatus did undercut this body. The legislature has made it clear that it intends to protect children from the harms of tobacco and tobacco products, but Altatus has prevented any local government from taking action to bolster these state efforts. For example, when Baltimore City attempted to stop tobacco sales within certain distances from schools, areas with repeat violations for sales to minors, Altatus was cited as a roadblock. Whenever a county has sought to reinforce state law preventing the sale of unstamped cigarettes, including loose cigarettes, with a law of its own, Altatus has been cited as a roadblock. In counties where more tobacco retailers exist than grocery stores, there's no recourse to limit tobacco retailer density. Again, Altatus is a roadblock. Altogether, our counties are left toothless in their fight to protect our youth and communities of color and to ensure health parity among all Marylanders. For this reason, MACO urges a favorable report for SB 99.
Thank you very much. We're going next to Rami Ek.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chairman Feldman, and members of the committee. I want to thank Senator Kramer for bringing this bill up again this year. My name is Rami Eck, and I'm representing the Maryland Public Health Association, which is a statewide organization for public health professionals. We're all here just striving towards healthy families, a clean environment, and good jobs. But we know that public policy can have a profound effect on equity, both for better or for worse. And I really love that I live in Maryland and can participate in the incredible efforts this body has put towards promoting greater equity in our state, especially in recent years. Local governments across the country continue to develop innovative solutions to advance health equity and improve the health and well-being of every community member, but preemption stands as a looming threat to their ability to do so. There's really an inherent conflict of interest between a business model and that is driven by profits and a public health model, which is driven by a goal to create equity and to protect communities. Public policy should also be driven by the goals of equity and community protections and not profits. If we look at the drivers of preemption type legislation, as we do here, we often find trade associations and business lobbyists, not neighborhood associations or equity organizations. Many preemptive state laws are aimed not at coordinating state and local regulation, but at preventing any regulation at all, and may be part of a long-term strategy to concentrate power at the state level and end local authority. We also know that preemption type legislation can harm communities that have historically experienced the greatest harms from public policy. Local authority for enhancing tobacco laws puts power back into the hands of the communities who have been impacted the most and could stand to benefit the most from further protections. And as others have said, this takes us back to the way the system existed not that many years ago. I would just like to say that sometimes it's not possible or appropriate to pass a statewide bill on an issue. I remember about 2 years ago testifying here, and I know it was 2 years ago because we were all in person back then. And it was on an ordinance that had been passed in 3 different counties and very successfully. They had very good data to show how beneficial it had been, and we were promoting it as a statewide law. And one of the senators pushed back, saying that maybe we should just keep passing the ordinance county by county for the ones that want it. That issue in particular was not tobacco related, of course, but it is clear that passing laws and ordinances in individual jurisdictions is an appropriate way to protect local communities in many other cases.
We are gone over time.
And my last sentence was, thank you for your time. We urge a favorable report.
Thank you so much for testifying. Now we're going to the unfavorables, and we'll start with Bruce Barriano. Bruce, are you muted?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Barriano. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Canadian Tobacco Wholesalers. Madam Chair and member of the Senate Finance Committee, I urge an unfavorable report. Regretfully, a lot of the information you receive from the proponents is just legally incorrect. What you have to understand is there are 2 issues. One is the sale of the product, and the other is the use of the product. The counties and localities never, N-E-V-E-R in the law, had the power and the authority to regulate and to pass laws dealing with the sale of these products. As to the use of these products, that's never been questioned. That is because the Court of Appeals in the vending machine case, Allied Vending versus the city of Bowie, and also in the Adidas case, just clarified and showed that the authority was always with the state to regulate and to pass laws on the sale of the product, because they tax the product, they determine the age of the product, and they determine what products can be sold. So the testimony you're getting of returning the power back to the localities and everything is without any legal foundation and is fallacious. But look at the bill carefully. The bill will give and empower the local governments for the first time to pass laws regulating the sale of tobacco products. And they will do that. That's why the bill is there. And you heard the extreme views of the proponents. They want a tobacco-free state. So counties will pass laws increasing above 25 years the age. Some of the counties and maybe the city will pass laws banning certain flavored tobacco from being sold. The passage of this will allow localities to ban menthol cigarettes and other type of cigarettes because they've never had that authority before. So that understand the difference and the notion that giving the locals this power is not going to affect state revenues is preposterous.
Bruce, you had only 2 minutes and you've gone over.
Well, I'll send the rest in by individual conversations. I urge an unfavorable report. This bill will very adversely affect the state's revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going next to Fred Parsons Jr.
Hi, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Fred Parsons. I'm with the George Falter Company. Not sure if my camera's operating. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Very good. Everybody's talked about the effect of the products and things like that. My concern as a wholesale distributor that's been, my concern is taking care of the different jurisdictions and the different laws by our retailers, that if they have multiple retailers in multiple counties, the training of the different laws for the multiple counties, Maryland's a very small state. The retailers will have a whole lot of difficulty training their people on what age is good in Anne Arundel County, what age is good in Baltimore City, what flavors are good in Montgomery County, what flavors are good in Prince George's County. The effects of the products, these are legal products. They're legal to be sold in the United States. They're legal to be sold in the state of Maryland. The local jurisdictions would enact laws that would restrict some of these legal products from being sold and create a nightmare for law enforcement to figure out who's supposed to be selling what, for the retailers to figure out how to train their people. It would just be a nightmare for all of that. We already have an issue in Montgomery County where certain stores cannot sell vape products because they're located within a half a mile of a middle school or a high school. I cannot get in touch with anyone in Montgomery County that will tell me how they go about enforcing that. Nobody has returned my emails or my calls. What we're setting up here by passing this law is allowing 24 more situations like this where nobody actually will take responsibility. They've created a law, and now it's up to you all to figure out how it works. And we are in flat opposition to this.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Next is Ellen Valentino.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the noise behind. Ellen Valentino here on behalf of the convenience store industry. Just a couple of points that haven't been made. This not only gives county authority, but it gives municipal authority. And the confusion that would ensue, should a municipality again overstep county authority, or county authority or town overstep municipal authority, will really be just an unfair scenario for small businesses, particularly during this very complicated time. So in short, I'm sorry for the background noise, but this is an important matter, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to speak. It is a tough issue. I respect the proponent's comments, but in this case, this is just not only unfair to the small businessmen, I do think it would be very unfair to our employees that would have to move from different counties where their different shifts may shift, and to be familiar with the different laws that would probably transpire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Kirk McCauley.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Feldman, and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Kirk McCauley, and I represent WMDA. We're a nonprofit trade group that represents service stations and convenience stores. And actually, this legislation will affect 181 jurisdictions. So theoretically, you could have 181 jurisdictions making rules and regulations, which would be a total nightmare. If SB 99 were to pass, allowing counties and municipalities to regulate tobacco and OTP products with just a few votes, a small council would have the ability to severely affect a retailer's viability to stay in business, to tell you the truth. Regulations such as banning menthol, mint, higher age restrictions, or outright tobacco ban would cost the state a share of tax revenue and have a major impact on retailers. Tobacco products are a large share of our store's profits, along with additional sales that they bring in. Legal age users of tobacco products would be forced to change their buying habits, purchase from another city, county, state, or illegal street sales, which if this law were to pass, we'll see that boom. There's too much money in it for it not to. Businesses will not only lose the sale, but they'll lose their customer too. Our retailers check ID, and we're committed to screening underage buyers. One of the unintended consequences to this legislation would be pushing buyers into the streets. If they happen to be in downtown Baltimore or downtown anywhere that borders are not close, there'll be plenty of market retailers that will be opening up that pay no taxes, ask for no ID, and they'll be servicing the youth. Illegal street sales will escalate, giving youth more places to buy on the street. These locations are not only dangerous for our youth, but they will check no ID and often employ the young to
I
do
hate
their
to
selling.
butt in, but you're over time. If you could wrap up.
I apologize. I'll wrap it up. You have my written, and we'll go from there. But this is a bad bill for business employees in the state. Thank you, and I'll
Thank
be
you.
happy to answer any questions.
All right. Matthew Bowley.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Matthew Bowley of Rifkin Wiener Livingston, here on behalf of the Premium Cigar Retailers Association of Maryland, in opposition to SB 99. The association includes approximately 35 brick and mortar, mom and pop, premium cigar, and pipe tobacco retailers. This legislative term, the Maryland General Assembly has taken the position that taxation authority on tobacco products should continue to lie entirely within the state's purview, and we support this position and ask that the regulatory system for tobacco also continue to lie within the state's exclusive authority. The prospect of different regulatory systems for tobacco is simply unworkable for these small Maryland businesses. Consumers will travel from one jurisdiction to another to obtain the products that they desire or across state lines if needed. And as we have seen during the pandemic, differing regulations from one locality to another creates confusion for businesses, consumers, and regulators. We believe that the state can most fairly and effectively oversee these processes and maintain a fair and uniform system of licensing, taxation, and regulation. Finally, as it pertains specifically to premium cigars and pipe tobacco, which you have not heard mentioned today, we are not part of the problem that the proponents wish to solve with this legislation. Youth are not allowed in premium cigar stores. These stores do not sell products that they want. As a result, we do not believe we should be included in this legislation. For these reasons, we respectfully oppose the legislation and request an unfavorable report.
Thank you very much. We're going next to Stephen Castro.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Steve Castro. I'm here representing the over 35 mom and pop premium cigar retail shops throughout the entire state of Maryland. I'm also a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I'm a combat veteran, and I'm the owner of Davidas Cigars. We started Davidas Cigars in 1996 and worked very hard to build the business. We started with one store and one employee and have grown to 12 stores and over 65 employees all throughout the state of Maryland, only in the state of Maryland, in 8 different counties. I've taken many risks to build my small company. As many of you know, it has been incredibly difficult to survive and stay in business over the past 2 years. We sell premium cigars and pipe tobacco, a luxury, expensive product to adult customers. Premium cigars do not fall into the scope of concern levied against most tobacco or vape products. Even the Food and Drug Administration has acknowledged premium cigars and pipe tobacco have a negligible impact on youth tobacco consumption. And according to the latest government studies, adult consumption patterns are not typically consistent with addiction. The FDA's own enforcement data shows that specifically retail stores like mine is the most certain way to assure legal adult sales for any type of tobacco product. So we are not the problem. With stores across the state, Senate Bill 99 would make it extremely difficult to comply with a very different and overlapping set of rules and regulations. We saw this happen over and over again during the COVID shutdown. All my stores were completely closed for months to customers, including curbside, when states like Virginia never closed their premium cigar stores. A friend and owner of Old Virginia Tobacco, who has 7 stores along the Northern Virginia border, said he has never had so many cars with Maryland license plates in his parking lot. Their store sales were up over 30%, while mine were non-existent. When we finally were allowed to open back up, Montgomery County decided that they would not allow my customers to use our smoking lounges. Those customers
You're over time, sir.
Okay,
If you could wrap up.
or they went back to Frederick or Howard County. People will travel over to other counties and out of the state if they don't have the products they want. If this bill goes into effect, it will hurt my company and force the stores to close, causing job losses in the more restrictive counties. I urge the committee to keep control at the state level and not give up your decision-making power to the counties. Please vote no on Senate Bill 99. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're going next to Debbie Robbins.
Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Deborah Robbins. I'm the president of Century Distributors. As of December 2021, our family business was acquired by Palm Beach Capital, and no longer can we say we are a family-run business in Montgomery County. Palm Beach Capital will maintain employment to our 200 employees and is continuing to support the families in our community. Bills such as SB 99 weighed heavily on our decision to sell our family business. With the uncertainty of the decisions this year and in the future, the senators in this room have the authority to pass. SB 99 has a direct impact on our business and the retailers we service in each of the counties and cities. As I look back over the 45 years that Century has been in business, there are only 3 direct stampers left, a 90% decline residing in this state. The decline in the family business and the struggles we face to remain viable in the state, and especially in Montgomery County, is a direct impact on the shifting of the laws in the state. No elected official should have the ability to permanently shutter a business for doing no wrong, both at wholesale and retail. A few points I'd like to make today. Tobacco policy must remain at the state level, including a flavor ban. 181 different local authorities over the tobacco creates winners and losers in business without solving any of the issues you're trying to solve. Let the FDA be responsible for flavor bans and not the state nor any jurisdiction. We need to only look at Massachusetts to see that prohibition and bans are a bad policy. When Massachusetts passed their flavor ban, state level tax stamp data shows that 90% of all flavored cigarette volume simply shifted to surrounding states. The same time, Massachusetts saw an increase in non-flavored products. Local patchwork of regulations create overdue complexities and burdens the retail universe. Allowing
going over
local,
time, if we could. wrap
okay.
up.
An unfavorable report is what I am requesting. And I am agreeing with my other opposition. And I thank you all for your time. And Senator Kramer and Senator Feldman, it's a really sad moment. And I actually have very emotional that we had to sell our family business based on these laws and what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sarah Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, my name is Sarah Price. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association in opposition to SB 99. We do not think it's appropriate to authorize local jurisdictions to create their own laws on this matter, and we think that tobacco regulation should remain at the state level. As other speakers have noted, local authorization results in a patchwork of laws across the state, which can be very difficult for multi-jurisdictional businesses to operate under. It also results in arbitrary winners and losers in the industry by placing established businesses in certain areas under new regulation while other markets remain untouched. We understand that the ultimate goal of this legislation is to keep tobacco and nicotine products out of the hands of children. These products are already age restricted, and we agree that bad actors who do not follow these restrictions should be punished, but not to the detriment of the entire industry. Additionally, harsh restrictions on brick and mortar stores that can and do screen for underage shoppers would do nothing to address out-of-state online marketplaces where minors can more easily access these products. Authorizing local regulations will result in restrictions which drive consenting adults to purchase the products that they want elsewhere. For years now, vaping products have been used successfully by individuals who are seeking additional cessation methods for nicotine addiction. And statistics show that banning these products also results in sales returning to traditional nicotine tobacco products like combustible cigarettes. We would urge the committee to maintain the preemption on local authority on this matter and to continue to regulate these products at the state level. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next is Mark Sene. Mark Sene.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mark Sene, and I'm the general manager of James Kurtz Inc., which is comprised of 5 service stations in the Silver Spring, Maryland area. And we do sell tobacco products at all 5 locations. And I'm here to testify against SB 99. The first point I wanted to make was that the sale of these tobacco products, which for us is primarily cigarettes, is a significant profit center for our business. We sell about $40,000 worth of cigarettes per month, which at 15% margin generates us a profit of $6,000 per month or $72,000 per year. And for us, being a small business, that's real money. So anything the bill that would do to take away that profit center would exacerbate the situations we're already facing with COVID and diminishing sales, hiring employees, and so forth. Moreover, if we do diminish the ability to sell these products, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where our customers are going to go elsewhere to find these products, even if they have to cross state lines, as some of the other guests have mentioned. And from Silver Spring, Maryland to Virginia is about 25 minutes to a half hour. So if you're willing to drive that length, you can buy up to 5 cartons of cigarettes in Virginia at a significantly less price. And if you want to play in the black market, you could resell them for about 60% profit margin. But in either case scenario, the state loses out on the tax revenue and the small businessman loses out on the sales and the profit. Another thing that concerns me about the bill, on top of the financial impact, is the carte blanche nature of the bill, which gives the jurisdictions total authority to make up any rules or regulations they want, regardless of.
I hate to butt in, but we're over time. If you
Okay, just one last statement is I maintain that smokers are going to smoke. Therefore, I see no justification for making the small businessmen lose the profits and sales, or the state of Maryland to lose their tax revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going now to Breon Brown.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and committee members. Again, my name is Brianna Brown. I'm here in opposition. I am representing Royal Farms as the public relations representative. So thank you for the opportunity. So we proudly operate in 167 stores and employ over 3,000 employees in the state of Maryland alone. This bill has the potential to create adverse confusion to not only to our patrons, but to our employees as well. It is possible that contiguous counties will have different age requirements and prohibitions. This will pose a great threat to our inventory and ordering systems And it will take a great deal of training and certification to ensure that our employees are aware of the changes and potential consequences of incorrect pricing. Purchasing and maintaining inventory would be far less predictable. To be blunt, it will be a logistical nightmare. We take pride in our role as a consistent and reliable entity for the communities in which we serve. If tobacco sales decrease, we may be forced to restructure, and that may include laying off employees. This action could result in an untimely store closure or closures, which in turn will affect that county's revenue. In closing, it is not our belief that the legislation will prevent the use or the sale of tobacco. Rather, patrons will simply travel to locate what they need. So we thank you for your time and consideration. We ask you to strongly oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next is Shelby Kemp.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Senate Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 99. I've also submitted written testimony for your file as well to review. The outcomes that would occur if this bill is passed would be very devastating to our business. If a county decides they wish to put restrictive tobacco legislation in place, that county would suffer from a substantial loss in revenue. Tobacco makes up 36% of our in-store sales, and if that revenue stream were to be cut off or decreased due to county legislation, we would need to lay off employees, and it could also do needing to close down stores. Every year we continue to build and grow in Maryland. If this bill is put into place, we would need to reconsider our new store growth in counties that do have these restrictive tobacco laws. This has never been a consideration for us before, and we don't want to reconsider our growth strategy, but we might be forced to due to the risk it imposes on our business and employees. On behalf of Royal Farms, we respectfully request an unfavorable report for Senate Bill 99. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, that was the end of our testimony on that bill. Would you come immediately to the hearing room? We need to vote on 6 bills, and the quicker you can come, the quicker we can finish. Oh, Senator Kramer has your hand up. Sorry.
Ms. Kemp, quick question. You said that you're a representative with, is it Royal Farms?
Yes, Royal Farms.
And that is a chain store. Let me ask you, what did you say the percentage of your, what was it, gross revenues, net revenues?
It's 36% of our in-store sales.
36% of in-store sales is tobacco related?
That's correct.
And this would be what, cigarettes?
It's all tobacco.
So cigarettes.
Cigarettes would be included in that, yes.
I know you don't sell premium cigars, so it's cigarettes, vaping. What else might be included in that?
Smokeless tobacco would also be included in that.
Got it, smokeless, okay. And it's exactly what was your assertion that, is it your fear that if local government had the authority to have some regulation over the tobacco products you sell in your store, that would be the outcome? You're making an assumption, I guess, that your sales go down. Is that the assumption? And is there anything that you have that indicates where Royal Farms has had this experience elsewhere?
No, well, we do in Virginia. They do have. I believe they're allowed to price depending on the county. And we did. Sorry.
Correct me. I'm not familiar with Virginia, but are you saying Virginia does have?
I believe they do. Yes.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I believe they do, yes,
They do. And do you all operate in Virginia?
we do.
Do you operate successfully in Virginia?
We do. Those stores that have gotten the tobacco, that have tobaccos or in tobacco counties do suffer a substantial loss in revenue, though. It's a fact. But, you know, we've seen in neighboring counties, the tobacco just rises. So people drive to the other county. It's not decreasing. It's just decreasing the sale within that county.
So that at the end of the day, your bottom line is not harmed by virtue of the fact that Virginia has.
The total
level.
company's bottom line is not harmed. The individual store's bottom line is harmed, and the individual employees that work within that store.
On the assumption that you are making that somehow granting this authority to local government would make that. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your input.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. That ends the hearing, and colleagues, if you would get to the
Senator-
hearing room as soon as possible, we would like to get started with the voting.
Senator,
Oh, all right, Senator Benson.
I want everyone to hear me clearly. This piece of legislation was put in as a result of a lot of discussions that we have had relative to the emergence of tobacco and grocery stores in our community. And these tobacco and grocery stores prevail in communities of color and where there are poor people. And so what we're finding now, after all of our hard work of working on encouraging people to stop smoking, we are seeing now an increase in the number of people who are smoking as a result of these tobacco and grocery stores. And so when we had the state of Maryland to come into Prince George's County to visit these tobacco and grocery stores, in one of the stores, they confiscated $12,000 worth of illegal cigarettes and tobacco products. In another store, it was $28,000 worth of tobacco and illegal products. We asked them the question, what was the problem? And they proceeded to tell us that it would be much better if the counties had the authority to regulate these tobacco stores because of the lack of the staff that they had on the state level. They said, we can't be all over the state. That is one of the reasons why we began to look at this piece of legislation, because we don't want an increase in the number of people who are now beginning to smoke as a result of the emergence of these tobacco stores that are not regulated by the state. They don't have the staff, and they strongly suggested that we put this piece of legislation in so that local local counties would have the authority to regulate these stores. That is the reason why this piece of legislation is, because we do not want our people to end up in the hospital, lung cancer, and all of the diseases that are associated with tobacco. That's the end of my discussion, Madam.
Thank you very much. All right, so we'll consider this hearing over, and colleagues on the committee, would you please come immediately to the committee room so we can do our voting session?